The Vorthak delegation stood at the edge of what their sensors insisted was a thriving agricultural zone, but their compound eyes saw only the same nightmare that had claimed 3 of their colony ships. The jungle of Kepler 442c stretched before them like a living wall of emerald death, its canopy so thick that even their enhanced vision couldn't penetrate more than a few meters into its depths. "Impossible," chittered senior agriculturalist Zexhai, her mandibles clicking in distress. "Our preliminary surveys were correct. Nothing grows here but poison and predators." The human liaison, Dr. Sarah Chen, smiled as she adjusted her wide-brimmed hat. At barely 1.7 meters tall, she seemed impossibly fragile next to the 2-meter Vorthak, their chitinous shells gleaming in the filtered sunlight. "That's what we thought too, initially. Lost our first 3 survey teams to the jungle before we figured it out." Commander Thacklon's antennae twitched skeptically. "Yet you claim to have established a successful colony here. Our orbital scans show impossible readings, geometric patterns where chaos should reign, productivity indices that exceed even our most optimized hydroponic systems." "See for yourself," Sarah said, leading them down what appeared to be a narrow game trail. Within minutes, the oppressive walls of vegetation began to thin, and the Vorthak delegation found themselves staring at something that defied every principle of xenobotany they understood. The jungle was still there, but it had been organized. Massive trees rose in orderly rows, their canopy carefully pruned to allow precise amounts of sunlight to filter through. Beneath them, previously lethal carnivorous plants grew in neat beds, their razor-sharp leaves now heavy with fruit that pulsed with bioluminescent nutrition. Vines that had strangled their survey teams now formed living trellises, supporting crops that seemed to glow with health. "By the hive, mother," whispered Zexhai. "The death vine strangler, you're cultivating it as a support structure?" Sarah nodded, reaching up to pluck a fruit from one of the murderous plants. It practically purred at her touch. Took us 6 months to figure out its growth patterns. Turns out it only attacks when it's stressed from overcrowding. Give it proper spacing and regular pruning, and it becomes one of the most efficient vertical farming systems we've ever encountered. The group moved deeper into the transformed jungle, past terraced hillsides where the notorious acid spitters, plants whose corrosive secretions had dissolved through their survey team's protective gear, now grew in perfect rows, their deadly spray channeled through a complex irrigation system that fed the entire farm. Thacklon stopped before a cluster of what he recognized as screaming thorn bushes, plants whose psychic emanations had driven 2 of their xenobotanists to madness. Here, they hummed quietly, their thorns carefully harvested and their roots tapped, for a steady stream of crystalline nutrients. "How?" he demanded. "These organisms evolved as apex predators. They exist in perfect balance to prevent any form of agriculture. Our models showed it would take millennia to adapt them for cultivation." Sarah laughed, a sound that seemed impossibly cheerful in what should have been a chamber of horrors. "That's the thing about models. They assume you're working against the ecosystem. We tried that approach first, lost a lot of good people and equipment trying to clear sections, sterilize the soil, start from scratch." She knelt beside a patch of what looked like ordinary earth tomatoes, but Zexhai's sensors detected chemical signatures that should have been impossible. The plants were thriving in soil that registered as pure poison, their roots somehow filtering out toxins and concentrating nutrients. "Our breakthrough came when we stopped fighting the jungle and started listening to it," Sarah continued. "See, Earth taught us something your species might not have learned yet. Nature doesn't waste energy on random cruelty. Every poisonous secretion, every violent behavior, every deadly trap serves a purpose in the ecosystem." She gestured to a grove of whispering stalks, plants whose hypnotic pollen had claimed their first xenobiologist. Here, the pollen was being carefully collected and processed, its psychoactive properties harnessed to enhance crop growth rather than ensnare prey. The acid spitters? They were defending territory and processing organic matter for other plants. The death vine stranglers? Population control and structural support? The screaming thorn bushes? They were communicating, warning the ecosystem about threats and coordinating resource distribution. Commander Thaklan's shell had paled to a sickly yellow. You integrated yourself into a predatory ecosystem. You became part of the food web that was designed to kill you. Exactly, Sarah said, beaming. Instead of imposing our agricultural model on an alien world, we learned the world's agricultural model and adapted it to serve our needs. The jungle wasn't trying to kill us. It was trying to maintain balance. Once we figured out our place in that balance, everything else fell into place. They emerged into a vast clearing where the crown jewel of the human operation became visible. A massive symbiotic complex where the jungle's apex predator, the cathedral tree, an organism so deadly that it had its own gravitational field of death, now served as the central hub of the entire agricultural network. Its root system, once used to drain the life from everything around it, now distributed water and nutrients to every plant in the system with mechanical precision. Zexhai stared in awe at readings that defied comprehension. Your yield statistics. You're producing more food per hectare than our most advanced orbital hydroponic arrays. The jungle was already the most efficient agricultural system possible, Sarah explained. We just had to convince it that we were crops instead of pests. As the sun set through the canopy, painting the organized chaos in shades of gold and green, the Vorthak delegation stood in stunned silence. They had come expecting to find another failed colony. Instead, they had discovered something that challenged every assumption about agricultural development on hostile worlds. The other species in the Galactic Agricultural Council, Thakalon, said slowly, they attempt to impose order on chaos to replace alien ecosystems with familiar ones. Sarah nodded, watching as the night-blooming sections of their farm began to glow with bioluminescent activity. That's the human difference, I suppose. We don't just adapt environments to suit us. We adapt ourselves to suit environments. The jungle was death, until we learned to become part of its life. The transformation was complete. Death had become abundance, chaos had become order, and humanity had once again proven that their greatest strength lay not in conquering alien worlds, but in making those worlds home.